The first thing I did was take her toothbrush out of the holder. Not angrily, not dramatically. I just picked it up, stared at it, and placed it quietly in the drawer beneath the sink. That drawer's empty now, except for that toothbrush. Like the last leaf on a branch nobody notices until the tree is dead. Melina had left 12 hours earlier. Said she needed a break from everything. Not just me, everything. That word's been echoing in my head ever since. Everything. Like the 10 years we built together were a heavy winter coat she decided to shrug off when the sun came out. I spent the night folding laundry I didn't remember washing, listening for footsteps that didn't come, rearranging the furniture in the living room like it would somehow rearrange the ache in my chest. And this morning, she sent me a text. Please don't think this means I don't love you. I just need to feel free for a while. Free? That word hit harder than anything else. Because I realized I hadn't felt free in a long time either. But I didn't leave. I didn't disappear for weekends with friends. I didn't start dressing like I was single or hiding my phone under pillows. I didn't erase our couple photos from Instagram or change my status to just vibing. I stayed. I chose us. Even when she started pulling away. Even when she stopped laughing at my dumb jokes or touching my arm in the kitchen like she used to. But now she was gone. Just like that. Off to clear her head. And I was left holding a life she clearly didn't want anymore. But here's the part one didn't expect. 3 days after she left, I got a message from someone I didn't know. No name, just a phone number. The message said, "You don't know me, but you need to see this. I'm sorry." It came with a video. What I saw in that video would make anyone question the last decade of their life. And the person in it was Melina, smiling, laughing, sitting in someone else's lap, wearing the necklace I gave her on our anniversary. In a place she told me she was too anxious to go, Nashville. But clearly, she'd made the trip. And clearly, she wasn't alone. I must have watched that video 100 times, hoping that if I stared long enough, the pixelated outline of the man she was sitting on would blur into something harmless. But no amount of denial could soften what I was seeing. Melina wasn't confused, overwhelmed, or searching for herself. She was happy, radiantly, shamelessly happy, with someone who wasn't me. And the part that kept replaying in my head wasn't the moment she kissed him. It was the way she laughed right after. That familiar tilt-back laugh she hadn't used around me in months, like she'd been saving it for someone new. I thought the unknown sender might be messing with me, so I wrote back asking who they were. They answered almost instantly, like they had been waiting. My name doesn't matter. But he hurt me too. You deserve to know. Before I could reply, they sent another message, a screenshot of hotel confirmation emails. Her name, his name, 3 trips. All during weekends she claimed she was volunteering with a friend or working late on inventory. Funny how I never questioned it. I was so busy worrying about whether she loved me that I forgot to wonder whether she respected me. I won't lie. I sat on the floor for an hour, ugly crying into a laundry basket full of towels because I couldn't think of anything else to do. I felt stupid, weak, like some fragile supporting character in a story I thought I was starring in. I even whispered out loud, "Why wasn't I enough?" Which was pathetic even by my standards. But the house was empty and echoing, and I guess I needed to hear how broken I sounded. But then something shifted, slowly, gently, like a rope loosening around my chest. I realized the worst part wasn't that she cheated. It was that she wanted freedom while keeping me as her emotional storage unit, her safety net, her quiet little backup plan. And suddenly, I wasn't crying anymore. I was thinking. That night, instead of calling her, begging for answers, or sending dramatic paragraphs like the old version of me would have done, I did something she never expected. I filed for a temporary separation review and moved into my brother's guest room without telling her. Not to play games, not out of revenge, but because she wanted space? Fine. I'd give her more space than she knew what to do with. And right when I thought the situation couldn't twist any deeper, I got a second message from the unknown number. This time it wasn't a video. It was a warning. Melina doesn't know I reached out to you yet, but she will. And when she finds out, she'll come running back. I didn't believe them. Not for a second. But only 48 hours later, she showed up at my brother's house, banging on the door, crying, shaking, talking so fast she could barely breathe. Something had happened. Something big. And suddenly the woman who needed freedom was desperate to come home. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at her through the glass. Her hair was a mess, her mascara smudged, And she was wearing the hoodie I stopped seeing her in months ago, the one she only ever wore when she wanted comfort. She looked like someone who had just watched her world collapse. But the truth was, mine had already collapsed 2 weeks earlier, and she hadn't knocked then. She hadn't cared when I was falling apart. So why was she here now? She saw me through the side window and started shouting, "Clayton, please, just let me explain. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I almost laughed at how fast the free spirit vibe had vanished. No incense, no ocean breeze metaphors, no vague talk about energy and the universe guiding her. Just raw panic. The kind that only shows up when someone loses control of the story they were trying to write. I opened the door just enough to lean against it, arms crossed. I didn't say a word. Her voice cracked as she said, "You saw the video, didn't you?" I didn't nod. I didn't blink. I wanted her to sit in the silence. I wanted her to feel just a fraction of what I'd been drowning in. Then she dropped the bomb. "Kenny's wife knows." For a second, I didn't process it. Kenny? Oh, the Kenny. Mr. Convertible. Mr. Studio. The man she risked our entire marriage for. She went on in a breathless tumble, explaining that his wife had found out. That the mysterious messages hadn't just gone to me. They'd gone to everyone, his colleagues, her boss, even the HR department at the art studio. There were screenshots, video, voice recordings, an entire spreadsheet of hotel dates and calendar conflicts that made it undeniable. And apparently, Melina's little escape from responsibility romance had consequences she didn't foresee. Kenny had been funding one of her side projects through a private donor, which turned out to be him. And now the donor had pulled out. The studio was distancing itself. And her name, our name, was being whispered around every gallery and boardroom she once begged me to attend. Now, she was crying not because she'd hurt me, but because she'd been exposed. I asked her very calmly, "So what do you want from me now?" She said she wanted to come back, to talk, to figure things out, that she realized too late what she'd walked away from, that I had always been the safe place, and she was just confused. She reached for my hand. I took a full step back. "Melina, you didn't walk away from a marriage. You burned it down." She tried again. "But we can rebuild." "No," I cut her off. "You can rebuild. Somewhere else. With your freedom." And with that, I closed the door. Locked it. She stayed on the porch for over an hour. I didn't move. I just sat on the other side of the wall, staring straight ahead, waiting to see if she'd break the silence again. But when she finally left, I didn't feel victorious. I felt like a man who had just escaped a fire, grateful, scorched, and completely done pretending it wasn't burning. The next morning, I found her car parked down the street. Same spot, engine off, windows fogged. She hadn't gone far. I guess she thought if she stayed nearby, I'd soften, open the door again, let her back in like she was just coming home from a long trip instead of crawling from the wreckage she caused. But I wasn't the same man she walked away from. Something had broken off inside me, clean, quiet, final. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was the simple realization that the woman I thought I married didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. I didn't text her, didn't acknowledge her. I left early, parked 2 blocks away, took the back path to my brother's place. I wasn't playing games. I just didn't want to breathe the same air. But the universe has a sick sense of humor, because just when I thought I could distance myself from her chaos, a certified letter arrived at my brother's that afternoon. It was from her lawyer. She wanted to revisit the terms of separation. Not divorce. Separation. Apparently, she still couldn't bring herself to admit it was over. The letter was full of polite language, requests for temporary access to shared assets, a conversation about emotional reconciliation, and something that made my stomach turn. She was asking if I'd consider attending couples therapy again. As if her public affair, her betrayal, and her desperate porch meltdown could be smoothed over with a few counseling sessions and a Pinterest quote about healing. My brother, Colby, a no-filter mechanic with zero tolerance for emotional manipulation, read the letter over my shoulder and just muttered, "She's circling. Like a vulture." He wasn't wrong. She'd created a mess, watched it explode, and now wanted help cleaning it up because she'd lost her backup plan. Kenny was out. The art community was gossiping. And suddenly, the dull, boring, dependable husband she tossed aside was the last stable thing she had left. So I made a choice. I wrote her back. 1 single page. It said, "You chose freedom. But now that you've felt what it really costs, You're trying to mortgage the past. I'm not your safety net. I'm not your cleanup crew. And I'm not your husband anymore. Not in heart, not in hope, and soon, not on paper. I signed it, dated it, sent it through my own lawyer. That same night, she called me. 3 times. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemail. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was confused. Clayton, she whispered, why are you doing this? I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd wait for me to come to my senses. I was wrong, I know, but I thought we had more than this. You said you'd always love me. And that was the moment I knew something had shifted, because hearing her voice used to shatter me. Now, it meant nothing, absolutely nothing. The silence that followed her voicemail wasn't peaceful. It was surgical, clean, cold, precise. Like the final click of a lock I didn't know I had the strength to close. For the first time in months, I didn't replay her words in my head. I didn't wonder what she was thinking or whether she regretted it. Because it finally clicked. She hadn't loved me for a long time. She'd loved the version of me that made her feel safe while she chased something shinier. And when that collapsed, she came back looking for a soft place to land. Not love, just convenience. But that soft place no longer existed. 2 days later, I got a call from someone I never expected, Kenny's wife. Her name was Mariah. Her voice was level, almost too calm, like someone who'd been processing rage for weeks and had nothing left but focus. She told me she was putting together a formal complaint to the studio board and possibly a legal claim for reputational damage, something about financial fraud mixed with workplace misconduct. Kenny had used company money for personal travel, and Melina had apparently signed off on some of the bookings under a creative grant. It was more than just cheating. It was paperwork, money trails, corporate damage. She asked if I had any emails or messages that could support her case. I told her I'd think about it. That night, I opened the shared cloud folder Melina had forgotten I had access to, the one we used for grocery lists and family schedules. But buried deep inside was a document titled Studio Budget Q3. Not password protected, not hidden, just there. And inside that file, I saw numbers and timestamps that matched the hotel confirmations I'd been sent. Her initials, Kenny's. Even an expense marked Creative Immersion, Room 112. I didn't send the file to Mariah right away. I wasn't sure what kind of man I wanted to be. The petty one? The vengeful one? The one who helps another betrayed spouse bury the knife a little deeper? Or maybe the one who walks away, hands clean, and lets karma work on its own schedule? But the choice was made for me the next day. Melina showed up again. This time she didn't knock. She just sat on my brother's front step, knees hugged to her chest, holding a photo album. Our photo album. The one I hadn't seen since she left. The one I assumed she threw away or boxed up next to her old wedding dress. She looked up at me like a ghost of the woman I used to know. No makeup, no performance, just wreckage. I brought this, she said softly, opening the album on her lap. I thought maybe you'd forgotten who we were. I didn't sit down. I didn't even look at the pictures. I just stood there, frozen, and said the one thing I knew would finally break through her delusion. No, I didn't forget. I paused. I just finally realized you did. And then I closed the door. Behind it, I heard the quiet sob of someone who thought she could always come back. But I was already gone. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt. Not because I missed her. But because my mind couldn't stop spinning from how calculated it all was. Melina bringing that album wasn't a sign of love. It was strategy, nostalgia warfare, a desperate last-ditch effort to drag me back into a memory she had already trampled over. I remember that exact album, how we made it together on our 3rd anniversary, picking out photos while drinking hot cider in our pajamas. At the time, she said it was her favorite day ever, and now she was using it like a prop, as if paper and glue could undo betrayal. The next morning, I checked our shared accounts. I hadn't touched them in weeks, thinking she wouldn't dare after everything. I was wrong. She'd transferred $1,200 from our emergency fund, labeled it personal wellness. I called my lawyer. No more waiting. No more emotional gray zones. No more space. I wanted the divorce finalized. Immediately, I told him to lock every financial gate, pull every record, and make sure she couldn't take another dime without setting off a legal tripwire. And then, just when I thought the universe had thrown enough curveballs for 1 week, I got another call from a restricted number. It was Kenny. His voice was clipped, arrogant, and weirdly calm. He said, "I think you and I need to talk man to man." I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. He continued, "Look, whatever your ex told you, just know she wasn't some victim. She knew what she was doing. She chased me. She said you were more of a roommate than a husband, that you had no drive, that you were soft." I stayed silent. He was trying to get a reaction out of me, trying to provoke me into anger, maybe even threats, something he could use if this got legal. Then he slipped. He said, "Honestly, I think she used both of us. Both of us." That was the first moment I realized. He didn't know about the video or the anonymous texts. He thought he had been in control the whole time, just like she did. I hung up without a word. And this time, I did send that file to Mariah. Not for revenge, but because people like Kenny and Melina only stop when someone draws the line for them, and I was finally ready to draw it in ink. The next day, my lawyer called with news. Her attorney had received the divorce counterpetition and asset lock, and apparently, she hadn't taken it well. She'd gone completely silent. No calls, no texts, not even a passive-aggressive email. But silence from Melina was never peace. It was always the quiet before another storm. And this one, I could feel it building. The storm hit 3 days later, though not in the way I expected. It didn't come in the form of an angry voicemail or a meltdown on my brother's porch. It came from her lawyer. A formal letter with a chilling line buried halfway down. "My client intends to dispute the grounds of divorce on the basis of emotional manipulation and abandonment." I read that line over and over, stunned. Melina was accusing me of emotional manipulation? Me, the man who folded her laundry while she texted her lover from the couch. The man who built her a garden while she booked hotel rooms with someone else. But as I sat there holding that letter, I realized exactly what this was. A last desperate move from a woman who had nothing left to bargain with except lies. She wasn't just losing a husband. She was losing her safety net, her public image, her fallback plan, and most importantly, control. This wasn't about love. It was about narrative. She couldn't stand the idea that she was no longer the one shaping how the story ended. My lawyer didn't even blink. "This won't hold up," he said. "There's too much evidence. Let her try." But I wasn't worried about court. I was worried about what she would do next. Because Melina wasn't stupid. She was reckless, yes, but not dumb. And when smart people get cornered, they do unpredictable things. Which is why I wasn't entirely surprised when I got a message that night from a number I didn't recognize, with just 2 words. "Check Reddit." I opened the app, already bracing for whatever damage she'd tried to unleash. And there it was. An anonymous post on a relationship advice forum, already gaining traction. The title? "My husband left me while I was struggling with depression. Now he's smearing me as a cheater." The post was full of half-truths and soft lies. She never used names, of course, but the timeline was identical. She painted herself as this emotionally abandoned wife who had tried everything to reconnect, only to be ghosted by her cold, emotionally distant husband. She even mentioned his jealous outbursts and how he used my need for space against me. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. She wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was trying to publicly rewrite history before I had a chance to tell the truth. But the truth has a funny way of surfacing. Because in the comments, buried deep beneath the sympathy posts and "you deserve better" replies, was one from a throwaway account that simply said, "He didn't leave you." I sent him the video. And just like that, the narrative started to crack. She had started a war of perception. But now, I had witnesses. The fallout unraveled faster than I expected. Within hours, her carefully constructed post began to collapse under the weight of its own fiction. More anonymous accounts chimed in. People who had seen her with Kenny at events she claimed to have skipped for mental health reasons. People who worked at the studio and recognized the timeline of what had really gone down. One comment even linked the actual studio's formal statement, confirming the termination of both Kenny and Melina's contracts due to inappropriate use of organizational funds. There it was, in black and white. Not rumor, not revenge, just the truth. Quiet and undeniable. By the next morning, the post had been deleted. But the damage to her illusion had already been done. She called me once more, one last time. I didn't pick up. I let it go to voicemail, more out of curiosity than anything. Her voice sounded different this time. Not performative, not panicked. Just defeated. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said. I thought I was doing what I needed. I thought freedom would save me. I didn't know it meant being alone. I listened, and then I deleted the message. Because I wasn't that man anymore. Not the man who begged to be loved. Not the man who waited for text replies or tried to earn affection by staying quiet. No, I had been rewritten, not by bitterness, but by survival. And somehow, that felt better than revenge. In the weeks that followed, things got quiet again. But this time it wasn't the eerie, painful silence that used to haunt the house. It was peace. Real, uninterrupted peace. I moved back into the home I once thought I'd have to sell. I repainted the bedroom, gave away the garden bench, donated her books. Every change felt like reclaiming oxygen. And then, one Saturday morning, I ran into someone at a bookstore downtown. Her name was Dana. She was standing in the same aisle, both of us reaching for the same beat-up copy of East of Eden. We laughed about it, talked for a minute, then an hour. She didn't know my story. I didn't know hers. But there was no weight between us. No tension. Just two people standing in a quiet moment of possibility. We've had 3 coffees since. No expectations. No pressure. Just presence. And for now, that's more than enough. I lost my marriage. But I found my self-respect. I found my peace. I found a version of me I didn't know I was allowed to be. And the best part? I didn't get even. I got better.